Morning, guys. We're in Hebrews chapter 11, verses 37 to 40. So, reading the end of the chapter of the Hall of Faith, men and women who are examples of faith. And now we go into a broad spectrum of those saints that have died for their faith, who were persecuted for their faith. And so, verse 37 says, they were stoned, they were sawn in two, they were tempted, they were put to death with the sword. They went about in sheepskins and goatskins, being destitute, afflicted, and ill-treated. And so there's many examples in Scripture, and even the text outside of Scripture, that explain the persecution of these saints and how they were rejected by the world. Just a couple of examples: Uriah, who was killed by the sword. Jeremiah 26:39, and they took Uriah from Egypt and brought him to the king Jehoiakim, who struck him down with the sword and dumped his dead body in the burial place of common people. In the Talmud, it talks about Isaiah being sawn in two. In 2 Chronicles, it talks about Zechariah being stoned. But they conspired against him, that's Zechariah, and they commanded the king. They stoned him with stones in the court of the house of the Lord. And even in the New Testament, Jesus alludes to many saints that have been persecuted and stoned and rejected. Matthew 23:35, and upon you may come all the righteous blood shed upon the earth, from the blood of the righteous Abel until the blood of Zacharias, son of Barachias, who you slew between the temple and the altar. And he goes on to say in the New Testament as well, if we had lived in the days of our ancestors, we would not have taken part of them in shedding the blood of the prophets. And so it's part and parcel of being affiliated with Christ as being rejected by the world. There's examples of Elijah. Let me first read verse 38 of Hebrews 11. Men of whom the world was not worthy, wandering in deserts and mountains and caves and holes in the ground. And now just think of Elijah being fed by those ravens and wandering around. 1 Kings 17 verse 6 says, so the ravens brought him bread and meat in the morning. Going on to chapter 18 of 1 Kings verse 4, and when Jezebel cut off the prophets in the Lord, Obadiah took 100 prophets and hid them by 50s in the cave and fed them with bread and water. And so even today, Christians are fleeing, they're going underground, they're being persecuted throughout the world. 1 Kings 19 verse 10, and he said, I have been jealous of the Lord, the God of hosts, for the people of Israel have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and they have killed your prophets with the sword. And only I am left. That's regarding Elijah. And so about Jesus, if we're going to follow Jesus, as Jesus says in Luke 9 verse 57, and they were going along the road, someone said to him, I will follow you wherever you go. And so if you're a Christian, you're a follower of Jesus. So he answers and he says, the foxes have holes and the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. And so even Jesus didn't have a home or a place, and like the prophets of old, living in caves and being in the mountains, Jesus didn't have a place to rest his head. We're going to end with I think we'll stop there. On Monday we'll do 39 and 40.